Welcome to the Draconic and Friends official podcast, where we peel back the curtain on puzzle games and the people who make them. I'm Syrenne, the producer at Draconic and Friends, and I'm joined as always by Alan Hazelden, the head Draconic at Draconic and Friends.
Hey there.
Today, we're joined by Joe again, who you may know from his work at thinkygames.com. How are you doing today?
I'm doing good, thanks. Hope you're doing good as well.
First returning non-employee guest.
As we figured out, yes.
Yes.
Thanks for having me back.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. We had you on in case people are not listening to every episode, which I wouldn't necessarily blame you. There's a lot of episodes out by now.
But they should be.
Yeah, but
Obviously, should be.
a weekly podcast is a little bit hard to keep up with sometimes, depending on how life is going. Anyways, we had you on to talk about the 2024 Thinky Games of the Year.
Mm-hmm. That's good fun.
Yeah, that was a fun episode. It was people were excited to hear some recommendations based on that. I immediately saw that your YouTube channel started posting videos of Bond.
Indeed, yes. That's a good point. I did start playing that because Alan had mentioned it
on the podcast.
Yep.
So
Yep.
Even you're being influenced even when you're on the episodes.
Indeed.
So yeah, no, we didn't actually take much time on that episode to chat to you about you.
Mm-hmm.
And so we figured we'll just have you back on and we'll do that in a more structured, more normal episode. So outside of what I kind of just alluded to, can you sort of tell the listeners again, what do you do?
Sure, yeah. So obviously I'll be repeating myself a little bit from before, but I'm sure some people won't have listened to that one, so why not? So yeah, I run the Thinky Games website where we share lots of puzzly problem-solving games and help people discover great games through that website and the other things that we do there. I also run a YouTube channel called Joe Plays Puzzle Games, where I play puzzle games. I guess that's pretty obvious from the title. It's like pretty much unedited playthroughs. So if you want to see like every single moment of me being stuck and not knowing what to do and just like umming and ahhing about everything, it's there. It's all there on my YouTube channel. I guess I've made a few puzzle games myself that are on my itch page. I guess my background, my training is in software development in general. I've done a lot of like web development, but also some game stuff. And yeah, that's pretty much me.
Awesome. And yes, if anyone is listening, wants to watch Joe get very start an episode full of hope on Lock Digital that he's going to like solve multiple puzzles in one video and then uploads a 45-minute long video of one puzzle, then do I have the channel?
That's the authentic Joe Plays Puzzle Games experience.
Exactly. It's
yes.
Yeah, it's what people tune in for. And it's kind of a problem because like the way I do my YouTube channel is it's intentionally meant to be a kind of a low effort activity for me. It's like I'm just playing games, I record them, I don't edit them much, I put them up on the YouTube channel. And I also plan to kind of do like roughly half an hour videos every day. And as soon as I get stuck on a puzzle, I am terrible at like moving away from it. I will just like keep pushing because I'm like, surely I've just got to do surely I'm really close.
Even in games which have multiple levels unlocked, where actually the optimal play experience would be to go, well, I've been stuck on this for 20 minutes. Let's move on to something else and come back to it. Brain says no.
Yeah, I just can't pull myself away from the puzzle.
Joe loves his puzzle blinders.
Yeah, and it's also funny that you'd think after all this time, like there are lessons you learn when playing puzzle games, right? You learn that like if you're like bashing your head against the puzzle for an hour, it's probably because you're on like the wrong path and there's like something you've done wrong in your deductions like earlier on in the puzzle. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how long I've been playing puzzle games for. That's still a problem. And I still get caught on the puzzle and then eventually go, oh, wait, if I just do this thing differently at the start, suddenly it's possible. And if I just like went, okay, now I've been playing for half an hour, I'll stop and come back to it the next day, like that would almost certainly trigger me to like realize that I was stuck on a silly thing like that. But nope, doesn't matter. I haven't learned anything over however many years it's been, 6 years or whatever.
Very early on, like the first weekend after Lock Digital launched,
Yep.
one of the daily puzzles was legitimately unbeatable due to a bug.
Oh yeah.
And I will be honest and say I was refreshing your channel to see if you were going to post a video of you figuring out the hard way that puzzle was unbeatable.
Oh, yeah, I guess I didn't do it that day, did I?
No, that would have. I think that was what killed your daily puzzle level.
Well, it's a coincidence, right? Like you didn't even try it.
Yeah, I don't think I tried that one. I think because it can be hard to like squeeze in a daily puzzle every day alongside all the other videos that I'm doing. Sometimes I like just drop off doing it. I think, fortunately for me, I just didn't try that one.
I mean, hey, we could just send you a build that has like a 2% chance that any given daily puzzle is impossible. Like
just to trap me. So I'll be stuck all day trying to solve an impossible puzzle.
If you want that experience.
Look, if you want to upload a 20-hour long video, and as I sit there delighted, having the ability to scrub through it or play it at 2x speed.
I love that that's the takeaway here. That's what I want. I want to be uploading a 20-hour video. I don't think that's my intention.
I don't think that's what you as a creator are striving for. I think that's what I, as a viewer...
Syrenne, do you think you're representative of Joe's audience?
No, not in the slightest.
Well, funnily enough, like I was surprised because I did a playthrough of Tunic last year, I think. And there's one video in that where I'm like deciphering the language that's in Tunic. You don't have to do that as part of playing the game. You can finish the game without deciphering the language, but there is a language in it that you can decipher. And I did a video where very little of the video is in the game. It's mostly in Photoshop with me like making notes and drawing out these symbols and all this stuff. And it's like 5 hours long. And it's like the most watched video in that entire series. So people clearly like that stuff. I guess I wasn't stuck. I was making progress, but you're
making progress.
Yeah.
To Alan's earlier question, no, I'm not. But also, I feel like I tune in for possibly different reasons than Joe's normal audience, because if I'm being fully honest, I didn't tune in until I started working with Joe, and developed a pretty solid understanding of how he approaches problems and problem solving. So I have a very specific lens through which to watch Joe solve puzzles that most people on this planet do not.
I think like I don't know whether this is true. I've not asked my audience or whatever, but my expectation is most people that are watching me, especially because I do it in this format where I upload like the complete experience, not edited down, is that they are there to see all the bits that work, the bits that don't work, whether it's like my fault because I missed something or it's the game's fault for not communicating something well. I think that is the interesting thing about it. And it's the thing that interested me about other people's playthroughs, which is why I started that channel in the first place.
Yeah, so do you want to dig into that a little bit?
Sure.
So specifically, the thing that listeners may not know is it's not just that you post sort of daily videos unedited showing the whole process. It's that you don't play thinky games unless it's for the channel.
That's true. I mean, I don't know if I have time beyond everything else I'm doing to play other games. Like, it's not just that I don't play thinky games outside the channel. I basically don't play any other game outside of what I'm playing on my channel, which is probably not great from the perspective of like I'm sort of missing out on lots of other genres or whatever. But I love playing thinky games, so it's great in that sense. And yeah, I just don't find the time to do other things. But yeah, at the time, this was kind of I guess this is the beginning of the story into like how I got involved in thinky games in general, is that it kind of started with starting the YouTube channel. And I had been watching other YouTubers like Alex Diener, who you had on the podcast the other week, and like Keith Ballard as well. I watched his YouTube channel a lot, and he plays like pretty much unedited playthroughs of games. And I guess I had started getting into the thinky game space, like starting to play various puzzle games and such. Like I'd played The Witness and Steven Sausage Roll, and Snakebird and Cosmic Express. And there was a game that was like on my like to playlist. Like this is before I started my YouTube channel, and it was Return of the Obra Dinn. It had just come out, and I was like, I really want to play this game. But there was part of me that was like, I'm also really interested in capturing that experience, like in the same way that I'm interested in other people's experiences. And so I delayed playing Return of the Obra Dinn until I bought a microphone. And once I did, I started playing it, and that was the first game that I played on the channel. So I was definitely inspired by those other channels and just wanting to kind of capture a similar thing on mine.
Awesome. Now, normally when we record these episodes with people, I try to immediately ask you a question about what you were just talking about, but I have so many questions and they're all firing off in a bunch of different ways, so I'm going to jump all over the place, and I apologize. Of the games that you've played on the channel, I'm not going to ask you what your favorite one because I'm sure you get that a lot, or a reasonable amount. My question for you is, what is a game that you played on the channel that really reinforced your love of this space?
Interesting.
Whether through design or through the experience that you had or for any other reason.
That is interesting. I don't know. I kind of just think it's like every game along the way. So like, yeah, the first one I played was Return of the Obra Dinn, and suddenly I was like, oh my gosh, like detective games are a thing and can be a thing, and this is amazing. And I just got deeper into the Sokoban space as well. Like before playing Steven Sausage Roll, I would definitely have been somebody who'd been like, oh, I don't like playing these games.
And that was one you did before starting the channel, right?
That was before starting the channel. Yeah, exactly. Sorry, the timeline's a bit all over the place. But yeah, before starting the channel, I played Steven Sausage Roll. Sadly, there is no playthrough of it on my channel, and maybe I should revisit it at some point to put that on there. But yeah, I like before then I would not have said I would not have expected to enjoy a Sokoban game, but it somehow convinced me. It was like my first one, and it's like notably like a really hard one, but it like totally convinced me that these games are amazing and interesting and special in a way that I hadn't expected. And I was listening to a recent Eggplant podcast where they were talking about Block Koala. Is that what it's called? It's like one of the games in
Block Koala.
UFO 50.
The infamous Block Koala.
Right. And they were talking about that with Patrick Traynor, and the hosts of the podcast were like saying similar things that I've heard a lot about Sokoban games, and it's like the same things that I felt about them before I'd that bit of my brain had been unlocked that made me love them. And I just I wanted to dive into the podcast and say, no, just play more, and you'll find the reason this is fascinating. And you'll get over, there's definitely a thing with, I think Sokoban games is that they can kind of feel a bit uncomfortable at first, a bit like you're in a tight space and you're just constantly hitting dead ends or whatever. And you get used to that in the sense that not in the sense that the pain, you get used to the pain. You get used to it in the sense that you start to learn how to
the possibility space.
What that means and how to deal with it, and it stops being a thing that you're that's frustrating or even painful or whatever. Anyway, that's a slight aside.
No, you're good.
And then just everything along the way. Some really notable games were Outer Wilds. Absolutely loved it. Perhaps my favorite game. It's hard to say what is your favorite game, but Outer Wilds is definitely up there.
Look, it's up there for a lot of people.
Yeah, it's just kind of it's beautiful. It's narratively amazing. It's also really. I've seen
you play the DLC.
The DLC, I did play the DLC on my channel, so it's there.
I don't think I've seen that.
But yeah, I loved it as well. I thought it was just as good as the base game, and I'm definitely looking forward to whatever they make next. Outer Wilds. I'm going to shout out Tokitori 2. I love that game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's horrendously underplayed, but it's there's this concept of Metroidvania games. That some people don't like that term, but I don't mind it at all. I think it's a fun term. But I think Tokitori 2 is the perfect. I'm not saying it's necessarily going to always be the best example, but it's currently my favorite example of a Metroidvania. I think it executes it super well. And yeah, just loads of other games I played along the way. Just kept reinforcing my love of it, and I'm not tired of it yet.
Awesome. What's a game that you played on the channel? What do you think was the hardest experience? Either
Yep.
in terms of the game was extremely difficult, and so you found yourself like you're not sure if it made for great content, or the game simply didn't click with you and it just felt like it was hard to get through, or like however you want to interpret that question.
Interesting. Gosh.
Yeah, because you don't drop games, right? Like once you've started something. I mean, actually, related question: is there ever a game which you started playing and were like, "No, this isn't for me," and just never uploaded it?
No, that's never happened. I think I've become like really like good at picking the games that I'm going to enjoy playing. So it doesn't happen.
And or stubborn.
I guess so. I guess I'm also stubborn, or you could say patient. I think I'm I'm able to give some like patience to every game that I play, even if it's like there are bits where I don't gel with it very well. I don't know if there's anything that's been like a real pain. Sometimes like a common experience is that I will like be really enjoying a game and it will get difficult in a way that I would describe as like not a fun kind of difficulty, where it's just like the complexity just ramps up and I like the puzzles just become intractable rather than like just like kind of deeper and more interesting, which is the kind of difficulty that I tend to enjoy. And then I can start to like bash my head against the game at that point. But like I tend to push through at my own expense, and I'm kind of glad I do, because it like part of the point of the channel is to highlight like what is it that works in a thinky game, what is it that doesn't work, and I guess I'm kind of highlighting that by showing the bits where I do struggle. I don't think I've ever dropped a game though. I don't necessarily 100% a game. There's a few games that I haven't 100%ed, but like Animal Well, for example, I got to a point in Animal Well where it was already getting, some of the secrets were getting a little frustrating to find, and I just knew the next layer beyond that was going to be more of that. So I was like, no, this is a good place to stop, and I'll move on to another game. So I can put a game down eventually, but I usually at least get to the credits. I think I've always got to the credits in every game. Hopefully that's true. It might not be true. I don't know.
I'll let Alan ask a question now because I've been dominating.
Oh gosh, pressure. I mean, going back to the origin story for the channel, was it that you decided you were interested in puzzle games and then Obra Dinn came along and that reinforced it? Or were you interested in streaming and then Obra Dinn came around and that like put you in the puzzle games mindset? Or like,
that's a really good question actually. So yes, to begin with, my channel was not called Joe Plays Puzzle Games. It was called just Joseph Mansfield, my name. And I did not intend for it to just be a kind of puzzle game focused channel. In fact, I think it's the second series I started on there was me playing, the old like Commandos games. I started playing Commandos 1. I think it was the second series I did alongside Return of the Obra Dinn. And, it's kind of, it's like a tactics game, so it's in the same like thinky space. But I certainly at the time I wasn't thinking. I was just thinking like whatever game I'm interested in playing, I'll play it on this channel. And I think what started to happen, I think I might be misremembering the exact order, but I played Despontibus, which had just came out around the same time, and it's like a game from within the thinky puzzle space, and it's like it's a small indie game, not like super polished, but I just like wanted to like play a game that was made by folks in the thinky community, and so I played that, and I just really enjoyed the fact that like in a way like I was almost being helpful to the thinky community in playing that game, like kind of helping to like showcase it, but also it kind of acts as like play testing. It's kind of too late, but it's like playtesting feedback for the developer as well. And I really like that relationship that started building with various developers as I played their games. And I think those two things, like I was just really enjoying those games, and I was loving that relationship with the thinky community and the developers there, and it just kind of pushed me more and more towards that. And eventually I decided like, well, I'm basically just playing puzzle games at this point. I'm going to rename the channel to Joe Plays Puzzle Games.
Awesome. And how does the timeline of this line up with the Thinky Puzzle Games Discord?
That's a good question.
I feel like I've known you basically forever. But I think that actually I started to get to know you through that Discord.
Yes, that's definitely true.
And I started that back in July of 2018. So
okay. So I was going to ask, because that would help me like frame. So that was 2018. So I probably wasn't there for the first couple of years. I should have looked this up beforehand, but I probably joined in. I might have joined in like 2019. Yeah, that sounds about right. That's like, so I had been playing some puzzle games before then. Obviously, I played The Witness, I played Steven Sausage Roll, Cosmic Express, Snakebird, as I mentioned earlier, Return of the Obra Dinn. I don't know exactly, like, because I'd been playing Despontibus, surely I was in the Discord. I don't know the exact timeline, but they would have been around the same time that I was joining that Discord and then starting to play stuff on my channel. I think my channel might have been first, but I don't know for certain.
Both of us have worked with you in various different contexts.
Yeah.
The first time around was working on Cerebral Puzzle Showcase.
Indeed. Yeah.
So yeah, let's talk about that a bit.
Sure. Okay. So yeah, I think of my YouTube channel as like kind of the start of all this happening. But I wasn't doing anything like professional in the game space until I helped with the first Cerebral Puzzle Showcase. Yeah, it was, right? And so the situation there is that, so while I was running my YouTube channel all that time, I was also a software developer and had been doing software development for 8 years or something like that. I've been programming since I was a teenager, but professionally I'd been doing it for 8 years. And then I was just looking to leave that job. And I was also thinking, well, wouldn't it be great if I could do something in the kind of the puzzle space? And I didn't necessarily know what exactly that would be. And I was ready to leave the job anyway. And so part of me was thinking maybe I just spend, some time not doing like paid work and just like working on my own little games or whatever. But I think sensibly, I also reached out to you, Alan, and was like, do you have like anything that you're doing at the moment that you could like have help with? And it just turned out that you happened to be organizing this Cerebral Puzzle Showcase at that time. And I was looking for a way to leave my job and like do thinky puzzle related things. And that felt like a great way to be able to do that without worrying about my bank account just emptying. So yes, a good like message to take away there is like ask people if they like need help with stuff or if there's any work going. Like often there won't be, but at least it like puts you on on their radar, and sometimes it works out and it can like literally change your life, which it did to me. It moved me out of like a software development career and led towards my like entry into the games industry. I definitely like came through a side entrance. It's a pretty weird way to get into it, but that's the only reason that happened.
Yeah, and like there's a pretty direct line, but it's kind of not obvious from the outside. But like the journey from the channel to Cerebral Puzzle Showcase to what you're doing now at Thinky Games. Like how much do you want to talk about everything in between?
Yeah, so with the Cerebral Puzzle Showcase, the first one I was like helping out with the streams that we run on the showcase page, basically like contacting streamers, seeing if they're interested in playing some of the games, and us showing the streams on the showcase page. And so I was organizing all of that for the first showcase. And then, so what actually happened, I guess it was probably while we were working on that. I don't remember the exact timeline, but I also applied for the Astra Fellowship from what was then called Astra Games and is now called Astrological. I applied for the Astra Fellowship because they were basically giving grants to people working in this space. And so the thing I applied, for was to kind of like, I've been interested in like, what does the next generation of puzzle script look like? Because I've been using puzzle script for a long time as well. And I applied with a kind of a version of that. I got rejected from that though, but like almost immediately after getting rejected from that grant, I emailed Astra to be like, I'm also interested in like starting a website about thinky games. Would you be interested in this? And it just so happened that Astra was working on that project at the time. They were already, working on making a website about thinky puzzle games. At the time, internally, the project was called Puzzle Central. So there's like an alternative history where it would have been called like puzzlecentral.com or whatever. But yeah.
But it was also like they were nominally working on this, but it was kind of in a space where like it was happening without like actually much progress happening on it, right?
I think it had been like, I don't know the full details of everything that was going on, but like I think it had sort of been in the works for like a year or even two, probably mostly just being discussed. I'm not sure how far along things were, but yeah, I think what basically happened is when I emailed and said, "Oh, I'm interested in starting this kind of website," I think the folks at Astra were like, "Oh, you might be able to help us actually like get this out of the door and get it done," which is effectively what my job became when I joined Astra, was get that website launched, and we ended up actually launching it as thinkygames.com. So after that, I was doing various other things at Astra, so I wasn't just focused on Thinky Games. I was, in general, I was doing what we call like genre growth. So any activities related to like growing the audience. And after about a year, so this would have been the end of 2023, we decided to like, the best way for me to focus on growing the audience of Thinky Games would be to just like focus on thinkygames.com. And that's ultimately what ended up happening. And now I've just been doing thinkygames.com stuff for the past couple of years, basically, or past year and a bit. Yeah.
Awesome. So, not to turn this into like a post-mortem, but like, how do you think the launch went? Like, it's thinkygames.com has gone through a few different evolutions since its launch.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
I think probably, correct me if I'm wrong, the most obvious and notable is the Thinky Games database.
Sure. Yeah.
Like, how do you think it was originally? How do you think like the rollout of the Thinky Games database is, and if you can explain it, and then how do you view it now?
Sure. So originally when we launched the site, it was effectively a blog about Thinky Games. Like with news and reviews and things like that. It was a WordPress website, and so it was what you'd expect from a pretty typical WordPress website. It's just a blog with articles on it, and great articles, great news, and all that stuff. But that was like what the focus was. Then the biggest like shift that's happened is when I started to focus entirely on thinkygames.com. Is that we started to do new things, new activities, new events, and things like that. So I guess like before the database, I'll get to the database in a second, but we started increasing like the number of like events we were running. So we started the Thinky Awards. We did the first one last year, and we're running the second one now. And we did a developer conference called ThinkyCon as well. We started doing more, like we should be doing more of these, but we started doing more like kind of giveaways and things like that. And I think we got more on top of our like socials as well, all that kind of stuff. But then, during that time, we were also working on the new version of the website, which includes the Thinky Games database. And so the idea behind the database is that like the most common problem I found when trying to, encourage more people to play Thinky Games is that they'd be like, okay, this sounds interesting, but like, where do I find out about these games? And obviously we could point them towards the articles, the news and the reviews and such, but then you're like just getting a kind of sliver of what's available, and it's only new stuff. We could also point people towards like Discord or follow like certain people on social media, and you'll probably hear about stuff. But what I wanted to be able to do is send people to a place where they could just be like, I'm not in this space. I want to know, like, what are all the best games on the Nintendo Switch? Or I want to know, like, I really like detective games. What are the best detective games? And that's why we started building the database. And it lets you do those things. You go to the database on the website, and you can immediately filter down to what platforms you own. You can search by genre. You can search by difficulty. If you would prefer an easier game or a harder game, you can do that. If you want a game that's got hints, you can search for that. I also really love that by having a database like this, we can really tailor the searching to what. I mean, it's mostly based on what I believe people who enjoy these games tend to care about when playing these games. There's a few things I'd like to add. We don't currently have a way of searching by how long the game is, how long it takes to beat. And I would like to add that at some point, but we're adding features as we go.
I mean, I've said on this podcast a few times that I get more and more excited every year when I hear a game be described as it's great, it's 3 hours long.
Yeah, exactly. And that applies to me as well. I've had a couple of games that people really want me to play, Maxwell's Puzzling Demon and I Want a Lockpick. I'm just terrified because I know it'll be an entire year of my channel dedicated to one game. Obviously, I could start a new policy where I stop playing games, but apparently that's not possible. I have to play a game through to completion. So, so I more and more I'm also I don't 20 hours is fine as well, but 100 hours, maybe less so.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that was one of my questions I had related to this. Is there or could there be a game that you're interested in playing, but that you wouldn't want to play for the channel, and so you just feel that you couldn't play it at all?
Interesting. I don't think that's happened yet. Sorry. I guess I just gave an example of it with Maxwell's Puzzling Demon and I Want a Lockpick. But I guess the reality there is that if I wasn't doing my channel, I'd have exactly the same feelings about it. Of this is going to take me 80 hours to complete, and I know it's going to get really difficult.
You could just play them and go I'm going to play for 5 hours and I'm going to stop there.
Yeah,
you could do that.
Yeah. And on occasion, I have done videos where it's just I'm just going to take a look at this game. I could do that, and I'm interested in doing that, and I might even do it if I find the time for it. But I know it won't really appease the people who are asking me to play it, because what they want to see is
they want to see you struggle against the end game puzzles.
100%, yeah, exactly. They want me to see those mind-blowing moments that are
just go full sicko mode.
60 hours. Yeah, I could, and I've done it on occasion. I played through all of Being and Nothingness, which was a really long game and really difficult. I played through all of Baba Is You, which you can get to the credits quite quickly in that game, but if you play everything, it's a big game. I did not play the expansion for Baba Is You for the same reason. It's this is probably going to be another 80 hours or whatever. Those kind of games end up not I just don't end up playing them, and I don't think the channel plays a part in that decision really, because I'm just playing what I would want to play anyway.
I mean, I appreciate that, looking at your channel, the exact immediate play order of Not a Crawl into Bonfire Peaks, into Trace Undas, into Metroid Dread, into Beat and Nothingness is very funny to me.
I like to shake things up and jump between genres. Metroid Dread is one
an action game.
Yeah, it's one of the few games I played that doesn't really fit the theme of the channel. But
I mean, the theme is good ass games.
Yeah, exactly. It's definitely tangentially related to some other games that I've played. The same was true with Subnautica. I played that as well. Yeah. I sometimes I just like to mix it up, and most of the time I am just going what would I like to play next? And one thing I've noticed is that sometimes that is just based on like if I've just played like a Sokoban game, sometimes I just want to be able to like run around and jump in a game, like and just have that freedom. And then after doing that, I'm like, but no, now I want to play like a really systemsy, like on a grid or whatever. Like yeah, I just like I go through different preferences, and I think that also helps the channel in a sense, like. So, okay, I'll 100% say I do not run my YouTube channel in a way that is like the best for its growth. Like, there are other ways to do YouTube channels that, like,
you're not telling me to like and subscribe 3 times a video.
No,
so yes,
I don't do any of that. Like, the most I do is like I now say, like, welcome back to whatever the game is, and goodbye at the end of the video.
How dare you make those concessions to YouTube?
Exactly. But if I were thinking about like what is best for the channel, playing more games is better. Like the most viewed video of any series is always the first one, because people just want to see what a game is like. And the most sensible thing I think you could do is play a different game every day. And then if there's like a game that like really captures people, maybe do a longer playthrough of that. But I'm intentionally not treating my YouTube channel as like a job that I'm like going to optimize perfectly for getting all the subscribers. That's not the goal there. I just want to play some games and record them and put them on.
Yeah. Do you monetize it at all?
I have started doing that. I started doing it as an experiment. I was kind of like, I just kind of want to know. I have no sense of like how much money you do make from ads on YouTube. So I turned it on for that purpose. And I keep meaning to like reflect on that and decide whether I should just turn it off again. Like I'll be upfront. Like I think I make £30 a month. It's kind of like low enough that I don't know if that's worth me blasting products in people's faces every time they watch my video. Like it's still something.
You just gotta be sponsored. You just gotta You gotta partner with NordVPN and G Fuel.
I mean, that is where the real money is if you're doing YouTube stuff.
If I don't hear you say Raid Shadow Legends in the next in the next 6 months, I'll be disappointed, Joe.
Yeah. Like having like, you know, in previous work we've sponsored like YouTubers to do videos.
Yes.
And it's expensive for the sponsor and it's great for the YouTuber. Yeah, exactly. Yep. Yeah.
What's a game that you played on your channel that you wish you could have gotten more content out of? Like either because you really enjoyed how it turned out as videos or because you just wanted to play more of that game?
Oh,
Bonfire Peaks.
Has Joe played the DLC for that?
Yeah, I definitely played the DLC, and like it's a good example. Like, I guess a lot of games, I would say like, I guess it depends on the game. So some games, when I get to the end of them, I don't think there's really much more they could do with that. I don't know whether I'm just like primed with Bonfire Peaks because I know there's more DLCs coming, and I know
there sure is.
Yeah.
And let me tell you, if this is the second podcast we've recorded in 25 hours where I'm talking again about the protracted development of the Bonfire Peaks DLC.
Nice.
However, every week that this podcast continues, we get closer and closer to the remainder of the DLC coming out. It'll be worth it at the end.
Yeah, and it's one of those situations where, like, as soon as you tell me, like, oh, we're going to make a DLC that explores this, like, other idea, this mechanic that we wanted to explore in the base game, but we weren't able to.
Because Syrenne was a bully.
Oh, that's why.
That is exactly why. That is, we needed to ship, and I wasn't going to delay the game like 6 months to include 3 more mechanics. And then it turns out it took years to come up with all of the puzzles for those mechanics, and I was right.
Well, I mean, the problem is
we were already leaning towards cutting those mechanics.
I was not the first person to bring up the decision. I was the person to basically slam it down on the table and say, it's this way or we don't ship.
Do you think if those mechanics had been in the first game, there would have been fewer puzzles for each of them?
Way fewer.
Yes, they would have been shorter sections that didn't fully explore. So the first
Mm-hmm.
So we're still not talking about the mechanics for the second and third parts.
Yep.
But the first one has been out there, and that was vertical arrows.
Mm-hmm.
And there were, like, I played a bunch of those puzzles, not those puzzles that finally shipped, but
Mm-hmm.
like a bunch of puzzles with that well before we launched.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm going to be blunt. They also just weren't as good of puzzles as the ones that ended up shipping in the DLC, because the DLC had more time to explore that concept and really, like, when you're playing a game like Bonfire Peaks, where you have so many mechanics, and also in theory every single puzzle in the entire game is optional outside of the first 3, which. There are development stories on that one. Not what you're thinking. It's a lot harder to tutorialize that kind of mechanic, and I think the Bonfire Peaks does really, really well with it. But because it's the DLC, and you can suddenly have a first level that everyone has to do.
Yeah, the difficulty curve was definitely forced to be better when we took it out into the DLC, but also we just got more thorough about exploring all the interactions with all the base game mechanics in a way that I think, in the context of the main game, we would just not have made sure to explore the full design space.
Yeah, so I guess the problem with kind of systems-based puzzle design is it's often like combinatorial. Like a good mechanic is combinatorial with every other mechanic, and so every single one you add multiplies the size of the game by a significant amount. Unless you're like really constrained and say, we don't necessarily want to explore this deeply. I guess I listened to the podcast you did with the furniture and mattress folks about Arranger, and they said like their kind of philosophy with the puzzle design is that they just intentionally weren't trying to explore things deeply. They just wanted to give you a little taster of like what a mechanic is like and then leave it. But that's not the Bonfire Peaks philosophy.
The Bonfire Peaks philosophy is we're going to wring out this towel until there is no moisture left.
But, like,
what a great towel.
Isn't it amazing, though, that you can do that and your players go, wow, every puzzle in this is amazing. Like,
that I credit to Corey. And I know Alan made a lot of those puzzles, but also Corey went through and dictated a lot of the mechanical direction and like the curation of that.
It's also something like inherently beautiful about systems puzzle design is that that's possible. Like, like adding vertical arrows like creates, I don't know how many puzzles were in the first DLC, but however many puzzles it was, and they're all really good puzzles. I don't know. There's something kind of magical in that.
Yeah. If you had to guess what the last two mechanics are, based on your memories of Bonfire Peaks and like what you could imagine those mechanics doing but weren't in the game, I would love. I mean, this podcast has just turned into geeking out about Bonfire Peaks without Corey, so this will be really funny for him to listen to.
Are we okay, like talking about mechanics that were in the first game?
Yeah, it's been out for years and years.
Okay, this is tricky. So we had water.
Yep.
We had like charring blocks.
Yep.
Are they all? Oh, we had spikes. Are they all? So the two DLCs, are they all based on the mechanics from the first one, which is like changing?
No, each one adds a new mechanic.
Sure, but are they like in the same way that vertical arrows is like a variation? Oh, okay.
No, it's variations on existing.
It's variation. Alan, the reason I said no was because DLC 3 is a little.
Yeah, I would say that DLC 2 is like along the same lines as DLC 1.
Okay.
And DLC 3 is like a bit more out there.
3 is the one I'm very excited to see Joe explore, and I also don't want to release any screenshots or video of DLC 3.
Interesting. So, yeah, this is like asking me to put my puzzle design hat on. Like, where would I go? There's like the things that feel like the simpler way to go that are just natural extensions of what you've done, but I can't immediately say whether they would actually be interesting or not. So like one example would be, like what if the crates because we've got like single block crates, we've got 2 block crates. What if they're like 3 blocks? What if they're like weird shapes? But I also know with the way that Bonfire Peaks is implemented, doing rigid bodies of like complicated shapes might be an absolute nightmare.
I mean, it is, but it doesn't stop it being possible.
Okay.
I mean, I would say that like very early on in Bonfire Peaks, you are combining the crates to form
that's true
L shapes and
that's true. Like
S shapes and all of this other stuff, both for bridges but also and like for stairs, but just also in general with the game design, and that also gets explored in the vertical arrows.
That's very true.
But I would also say, interestingly, and this is not about DLCs 2 and 3 anymore, this is just like a meta game design thing, is the more you do that, the more you rely on that, the increasingly hard it is for players to plan one step ahead, because you're starting to overload how much too
many possibilities.
Too many possibilities, but also like, okay, well, now it's going to be this. Well, now it's going to be this, right? I'm going to make Alan groan here. Like, when you think about Tetris, like, the way that you get good at Tetris...
You mean that famous thinky puzzle game, Tetris?
No, not a thinky puzzle game. It's a puzzle game, but it's not a thinky puzzle game. It's an actual
not a puzzle game.
It's a puzzle game. The way that you get good at solving those puzzles is through the repetition, because there's only 7 pieces. And so you learn very quickly how... like the S shape, can hook on to a T shape, right? Like you learn that interaction, and then the interaction can repeat, and the interaction can repeat, and it will show up in different contexts because the drop order is randomized. In Bonfire Peaks, because everything is a little more handcrafted, and it's not as consistent and persistent from level to level to level, what you end up getting is this fascinating, like, you get a eureka moment every level, which is a great thing from a game design. But then the other thing is it can become mentally taxing.
Sure. But I guess with regards to like rigid body blocks being weird shapes, whatever, you've almost got, it's more open when they don't, like, if you start a block already in a weird like L shape, whatever, you're actually removing options that you would have had
it's true.
if you designed the same puzzle with like the smaller blocks that you have to attach together. I guess the other thing with like weirdly shaped blocks, and like having made a couple of like little rigid body puzzle games before, like the kind of weirder the shapes get, the weirder the things you can do with them. Like, especially when you've got like, because you've got water in Bonfire Peaks, and like water pushes things along. And then what happens if like something's like standing on something that's being pushed along while there's something behind them?
All of that is fine. The cardinal sin of Bonfire Peaks is the rotation.
100%.
Like,
for some reason, Corey keeps doing it.
Every other decision in that game is like really elegant, and like sure, it might throw up some really complicated edge cases, but those edge cases are like you can work through them and go like, oh yeah, this is logical, and this is logical, and this is logical. But the rotation, just like, I'm never doing it again.
It blows the possibilities space so wide open.
It also just like the problem I see with rotation is that like rotation is inherently continuous. Like the places that a block sweeps through as you rotate is no longer grid aligned.
No,
and sure, you can like calculate which cells of the grid does this block pass through as it's sweeping, but that's not like an inherently intuitive thing. And additionally, there's like the physics of like a rotating thing hitting something that's like in a different row or column. How should it move that thing? And it has to move it in a way that's still grid aligned, which doesn't physically make sense. And so, Corey, please, the next game, get rid of rotation.
I will say, to close out the Bonfire Peaks conversation quickly, Melanie, who is the editor of this podcast, sent me a snippet of a conversation that she was having with a friend literally 2 days ago at time of recording, which was, Bonfire Peaks is the only DirectNet game I struggled to get into because the introduction of the Z-axis was just too much for me. Reply, doesn't Patrick's Parabox kind of have a Z-axis? Response, Patrick's Parabox has a W-axis.
In like graphics programming, there's like the concept of is it homogeneous space or something like that? It's like a 4D space in which you do your graphics. So basically, Patrick's Parabox lives in that space.
Extremely just remembering that Mario 64 speedrun video that's like, but first we need to talk about parallel dimensions.
Oh, yeah.
Awesome. Are there any questions that you have for us? I know that, we're usually available to you outside of the context of this podcast, but just like in general, either based on the conversations we've been having or just in general, what the podcast about, our project, about anything.
I've got a really easy question for you.
Yeah.
How do we get more people playing thinky games?
You said easy. That's easy to ask.
Could you just solve everything for me, please?
That's an
okay.
question to ask.
Just give us. Hey, Syrenne, do you would 10 million do, or do we need a bit more?
We need a bit more. So what we need to do. Here's step 1: get like $25 million. Step 2. Work with Nintendo to acquire the rights to make a Zelda game. Step 3, make a Zelda game that's all puzzles, no action.
Yes.
Step 4, make it the best reviewed game in the franchise.
This sounds like a great plan.
Everyone points to that and says, why aren't all games like that?
You know what I really want a Zelda-like game to do? Here's a game idea.
Yeah.
I guess it's like a thing that could happen in a game. So you got Zelda-like dungeons, and you're solving puzzles in these dungeons, and then eventually you realize that you knock down a wall or something, or you like hookshot over a gap, and you realize the dungeons are literally next to each other, and you can go between them and solve puzzles across dungeons, and you're solving like multi-dungeon meta puzzles, and it's like amazing. That's what should happen.
This is what I'm saying is give us $25 million and the rights to make a Zelda game and the rights to put that Zelda game on all platforms so that everyone can play it. Okay. And then we'll like make sure that it hits like a 99 Metacritic.
Yeah.
And then it'll revolutionize everthing about this entire industry forever.
You've got contacts at Nintendo, right, Syrenne? Come on.
Yeah, I could call someone up and they would kind of chuckle at me, I think.
That's how you get the Zelda IP.
Yeah, I just talk to people who are employed at the companies that technically owns the IP, and they would feel like, not to be clear, do I have contacts on the development team of Zelda? No. Do I have contacts of people who have an @nintendo.com email address? Yes.
Yeah, that's how we get our foot in the door. Let's do it. Sounds like a good plan.
Oh,
so you heard it here first. Next game after the electrifying incident will release in 2030.
It's going to be a PS6 Zelda game.
PS6.
Oh god. Anyways, Joe, one of the games that was on my list for the Thinky Game of the Year podcast we didn't get to was, I had written down The Legend of Zelda Echoes of Wisdom just in case I could complain about it on the air.
It's going to be complaining. That's interesting.
I think, and I'm actually going to like, I know, because it's not on your channel.
Good point. You can look up what I played.
Exactly. I'm going to actually like shut up about my feelings about this right now, because I genuinely think that would be such a fascinating one for you to watch you play through.
Interesting. Yeah, maybe I'll get around to it at some point.
It's immersive.
It's very interesting. Like, there's a lot of ideas there, and it's almost a brilliant puzzle game. Like it's not even that far from being a very pure puzzle game.
Yeah.
So you know how in like an action game, you can have like a million different attack combos, but if square beats every enemy, then you're not incentivized to learn anything else.
Yeah, I think I've seen like comments about like, oh, you can just like place beds and then climb over anything.
Oh, it's not even just beds. There's one specific, there's an item that is, you can traverse this, you can enter this from any direction, including from, you can put it above you and jump up into it. It's like a water block. And then you can exit it in any direction and you can chain them.
Yeah.
to make a mid-air floating hallway to where you want to go.
Yeah.
And suddenly nothing in the game matters.
I love that at least you are saying like it is like a kind of interesting, a fascinating game as well, because like that is true with Nintendo. I think is that like I grew up on Nintendo games, and of all the like AAA stuff, I don't play AAA games very often anymore, but of all of them, I'm most interested in what Nintendo does, because they do like fascinating things and interesting things.
Yes,
and
I think that. I don't think that Echoes of Wisdom is a phenomenal game. But what I will say is it's also like in conversation with a couple of other games on your channel in a very interesting and maybe accidental way.
Sure, yeah. And like maybe games like that will inspire something that
I have no doubt that someone is going to have played Echoes of Wisdom and and come away with a great idea for a game that we're going to see in 2.5 years.
Yeah.
And then they're going to say, oh yeah, I played Echoes of Wisdom and I took note of the things I liked about it and the things I didn't like about it, and then I made this.
It's a great way to come up with game ideas.
Yeah, I'm going to play the latest Zelda and then fix it.
It's like perfect for marketing as well. It's like, well, like there's loads of people that played that game, and probably quite a significant chunk of them also thought the same thing.
Yes.
Yeah. One of the things I thought while I was playing the game, and I didn't finish it, but the games it really made me think of were all of the puzzle script, like side-on with gravity games that exist.
Interesting.
Because so much of that game is like 2D Zelda-y overworld, but then you go into a cave and then it's like a side-on cave. And it's really like grid-based puzzles. And like you could just take that structure of like, oh yeah, you're exploring an overworld, and then you go into these places and there's standalone puzzles.
Yeah.
And like
and that is
structure is like
interesting
gold.
And that structure is in conversation with the last time they attempted that, and it turned out very bad, which was, or not the last time, the first time they attempted it, which was Zelda 2 Link's Adventure of Link on the NES.
Oh yeah, interesting.
Where that game is top down in the overworld, and then it's a 2D hack and slash game.
Yeah, I mean, also Link's Awakening had a few like weird platformer.
Link's Awakening was the attempt to refine that, and then this is the attempt to evolve from the Link's Awakening 2D sections.
Link's Awakening is the best Zelda game. Just going to put that.
I mean, this is in the same engine as the remake, developed by the same team as the remake. So if there's one game one Zelda game that this is in conversation with, it's Link's Awakening, and if there's two, it's Link's Awakening and Breath of the Wild.
I was also reminded of like when Alan was saying about the structure being really interesting. It made me also think of Isles of Sea and Sky again, because obviously that's taking inspiration from Zelda games.
Link's Awakening specifically.
Link's Awakening, exactly. And I love that game, but one of the things I did come away from it feeling is that game is like very. Like the world is the puzzles. Like you go to an island and it's puzzle, 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 like room to room, just every single thing.
Right, there's no downtime.
Yeah, and like one of the things that I think Zelda games do really well is there's that element of exploration and going, to a village and you speak to some characters and they give you a kind of direction to head in, and then there's this cool item you find that opens up like a waterfall, and then you get to like the mountains, and there's that kind of feeling of like. It's not even like I guess it's downtime from the puzzles, but it's like that feeling.
It's differentiation and pacing, right? If every verb is puzzle, then the reward for puzzles is puzzle, right?
Which I love often.
and puzzles are like, look, we're on this podcast. Of course, puzzles are great. We love puzzles here. I think the bigger thing for me is like when I look at a Monsters Expedition, which is in some conversation with that kind of game design structure. You like the reward for solving puzzles is like, you're gonna. It's obviously gonna be more puzzles because that's most of your verbs. Yeah, but like there are items in the overworld that are like direct and like specific reprieve, like mental reprieves, focus reprieves, and like also landmarks that you want to navigate to specifically for reasons outside of. What the hell am I supposed to do over there? I should get over there.
Sure, yeah. And like, part of me believes there's a way to do a Zelda-like world where you're kind of just adventuring through it and exploring, but still have a kind of stronger puzzly feel to it of like navigating that space, and like maybe there are little puzzles to figure out to get from one thing to another, but without it feeling like you're in a dungeon the whole time, right? And yeah, I think we're basically this is our pitch for Nintendo, right? We just send them this podcast.
I mean, look. If Alan has a ton of ideas, I have a ton of ideas, and like I feel like everyone who's played more than half of the Zelda franchise has like 1,000 ideas for what they would do with the Zelda IP. And then somehow the best Zelda game on Switch is Cadence of Hyrule featuring Crypt of the Necrodancer. And you're like, hell yeah. Last Zelda question. Joe, have you played Cadence of Hyrule?
No, I've not played it.
Is it because it's a rhythm game?
I don't know. I don't think it was
because
ever
in the
really...
settings you can turn off the rhythm game and it becomes a Sokoban.
Oh, that wouldn't stop me from playing it.
It becomes pure puzzle. That game is pure puzzle because every combat encounter is a puzzle, and the only way that and by default everything is rhythm puzzle, and then you can remove the timing, and then every single thing in the world becomes. The world advances one step forward when you move.
What do you think that's a better way to play it?
No, but that's because I'm a professional musician.
I like rhythm games. Like I think if I were in that situation, I'd be like, no, I'm going to leave it on.
I think that the real time aspect of it gives it a flavor that is then missing. Yes. When you're playing without...
It presents a tension.
Because I played that game, and I'm not a rhythm player, so I turned off that setting, and playing it without the timing meant that the puzzles just weren't particularly interesting puzzles for me. They felt a bit samey.
It didn't carry the game.
They didn't carry the game.
Yeah.
And like, there's still a great vibes to it, and like, I'm sure there's some really cool late game puzzles, probably. But
yes, To be clear, not only have I been a music teacher in a past life, but like literally yesterday at the time of recording, this is just going to exactly say when we're recording this. Yesterday at the time of recording, that team's next game, Rift of the Necrodancer, came out, and I had played that a little bit at the end of last year. That is a game that is so far for rhythm sickos, like to the point where like
you're playing triplets and
it's so much work. It's so much. It's so beyond that, Joe. It is
syncopated rhythms.
Yes, it is. They have like you should watch a trailer at some point. There's a demo where you can play the tutorial. The tutorial will explain exactly why this is a rhythm game for pure sickos.
Yeah.
But
it's like time signature changes every bar to something else.
Yeah, it's ridiculous, but like it's a genuine evolution over like the Note Highway type of rhythm game.
Okay.
And I love it. And also I'm like, there's no way this could be popular with most people because this is like so out of reach for most game players.
Yeah. It's interesting, talking about like puzzle games with rhythm elements. It also reminds me of Temple of Snake. Game came out a few years ago, which had exactly the same thing. And it's interesting that it I think it does inherently like split your audience into two. It's like one half of the audience is like, oh, I love the kind of rhythm aspect of this. This is great. And then there's the other half that's like, thank goodness they put in an option to disable the timing element. I just want to play the puzzles. I'm curious to see more in that space and what they do with it. And I wonder if it's possible to make a version that doesn't divide the audience in that way. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe. Yes. I would say that like Echoes of Wisdom is a game that there is genuine like I do think that should be on your to play list, but it should be much, much closer to present on your to play list than Cadence of Hyrule.
I'll add it to my list of 80 games.
Yes. Cadence of Hyrule can be 81.
Okay.
But
the way I organize my list is I have a like priority list at the top, which is like 5 games usually at a time, and then there's just 75 other games.
Echoes of Wisdom should be probably near the top of the 75, and Cadence of Hyrule could be last place. It's not that puzzly, but the rhythm element guiding the puzzles and like the navigation through the world, it's a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, we should wrap this up because this conversation is not feeling like it's going to wrap up, and this is really just underscoring.
We could make it the longest podcast you've ever done.
The alternate, we might already be near there. This is just underscoring the alt history where the podcast was always the 3 of us, and it wasn't an interview podcast.
Yeah, this is just the discussion podcast.
Yeah, this is. Gosh. All right. Now I'm looking at the final episode lengths. Thinky Game of the Year is longer than this so far, but that's also Joe.
Yeah. Sorry, it's my fault. I think I'm the common thread.
Yes, and then this is basically the same length as the episode with Harry.
Mm-hmm.
Hey Joe, what's next for thinkygames.com?
What is next? Well, good question. We're doing the Thinky Awards at the moment. I'm not exactly sure when this episode's coming out, but the results might be out by the time.
Lock Digital snubbed.
No, Lock Digital's eligible
That's what
next
we get
year.
for releasing in December.
December, yeah. Sorry, like it is interesting running an awards thing and realizing like how complicated it is to line things up with the year, because you kind of want a Game of the Year category because that's like a good label to have, but it's like impractical to actually line it up with the year. Yeah, so Lock Digital will be eligible next year. You can nominate it, anybody can nominate it, and I mean, I love the game. I think it has a good chance, so at the very least of becoming a finalist in the categories. So we'll see what happens. But what is next? So we also have like a kind of secret project on the go that I can't talk about, but I think is going to be really fun. We'll be doing another ThinkyCon this year, and there's going to be a kind of focus this year on reaching more people and getting them to just getting more people interested in Thinky games. So that's what we're focusing on at the moment. Yeah,
awesome. And where can people find you?
People can find me on socials, usually by my name, Joseph Mansfield now, but sometimes by my username, SFTRabbit. I'm sort of like slowly ditching that username. Or on Discord, I'm usually just, Joseph Mansfield on various Discord servers. Obviously, anything related to thinkygames.com, I'll be there. And my YouTube channel, Joe Plays Puzzle Games. You just search for that on YouTube, you'll find it. And I think that's pretty much it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again for joining us. It's been a lot of fun. I don't think there's going to be much to cut out for this one.
Yeah, let's do it again in 2 weeks, right?
Yeah, indeed. Happy to join again. My only hope is that there's a Nintendo employee listening to this and is going to like take it to their management and say, "See, this is what we should be doing."
Look! If they want to come to us with $25 million and the rights to put the Zelda game on all the platforms, like,
yes, please.
See, I mean, we've talked about making a Zelda-like game before. Like, I like on this call, I opened up my document that's titled Draknek's Amazing Puzzle-Like Zelda that we can definitely make in a reasonable length of time, for sure. And
Alan, this is the outro.
One day.
I know.
One day we'll do that. But thanks for
All right, thanks again. And thank you for listening to the Draknek and Friends official podcast. Our music is by Priscilla Snow, who you can find at ghoulnoise.bandcamp.com. Our podcast artwork is by Adam DeGrandis. Our podcast is edited by Melanie Zawodniak. Please rate and review us on your podcast service of choice, and be sure to tune in next episode for more interesting conversations.
And just to keep this going, like one minute longer, like